Hi, I'm Paul Germain, and welcome to another session of Smart Boating. As you know, if you've watched the show before, we cover a variety of topics from hurricane protection to docking, and the general idea is to provide you with information that will help you make smarter decisions and have more fun on the water. Now, today's show kind of fits underneath that umbrella, and we're going to look at the area of boat donations, which can be of great benefit to both the donors and those that purchase the boats. And joining us to guide us through that world is Ron McBain of the Block Island Maritime Funding Organization, which is a non-profit organization focused on boat donations. Welcome, Ron.
Welcome. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me onto the show.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Hey, we got a great show here today. I think this is an area a lot of people aren't that familiar with, so I think it's going to be very helpful to them. But before we get into it, can you talk a little bit about your boating background?
Sure, Paul. I became involved in boating back in the early 90s. It happened to be on a wooden schooner, 65-footer. It's my first time sailing, and I became just totally enthralled with the idea of sailing. Shortly after that, I bought my first boat, and I re-outfitted it for cruising, and then I took my family on a 2-year cruise.
Wow.
Learning how to sail along the way. It was good.
Good.
Shortly after that, I had enough sea time to get my captain's license.
Nice.
And then I became an ASA certified sailing instructor as well, and that led me straight into Block Island Maritime Funding.
Beautiful. Well, you get a lot of sailing and on the water time experience. Can you tell us a little bit more about Block Island?
Yeah, Block Island Maritime Funding is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And what we do basically is we finance educational programs for both children and adults.
Okay, all right. So in contrast to other organizations that might have a broader view, you guys dial right in on maritime organizations.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
And we do that through boat donations.
Yeah.
That's what we focus on.
All right, so we're going to tell people a lot about those.
Exactly.
So why don't we get right into it, because this is the good time to do it. In this subject, you know, boat donations, like many of the ones we cover here, is pretty expansive. There's a lot of different pieces to it. But I thought what we could do together today is talk a little bit about how the programs work and show people some of the boats. And we've got a image. We've got some images with us today. And the first image we have on the screen in back of it here is I believe it's the 1975 Baltic 42, right?
Yeah, it's a 1978 Baltic 42.
1978.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of the first designs from CNC Yachts, and it was based on the IOR racing rules of the time, back in the 1970s. And so she has a really beautiful design to her. She's kind of narrow, and she's wide at the beam, and she has an extreme stem angle as well.
Okay.
So she's really outfit for racing. She's a machine.
Yes. You see that in this picture.
You can see that in the decks here, that she's got all of her steering stations and sheet trimming stations. And she has a beautiful two-tone painted deck.
Yeah.
Now, there was a sister ship of the Baltic.
Oh, yeah.
That competed in the Fastnet race of 1979.
Right.
And that's a notorious race. It's very famous.
That's a heck of a race.
That boat actually competed and completed the race,
wow.
which is outstanding. It says a lot towards the Baltics.
It does, it does. And this one came out of Florida, it looks like, and then it's up in Massachusetts now, right?
That's exactly right. And you can see it's got a brand new paint job, two-tone decks, and she's quite different from hulls of today, where the hulls of today come back from the midships all the way back, about the same width.
Right.
And this one's very narrow.
Yeah, right. It's got a pretty shape to it.
Right. She's a good performance cruiser today.
She's a good, interesting boat. Well, let's talk a little bit about programs. So I want to talk about them from a donor perspective first, and then we'll get to a purchaser perspective. So when someone is thinking, or maybe they should be thinking about donating a boat, what are some of the things that are important for them to keep in mind? Or how does that typically come into being? How does the situation arise?
Right. Well, it usually starts out with an owner of a boat deciding to sell, or somehow they fell into the boat from another family member, or they need to get out from underneath the boat in some way.
Yes.
So what happens usually is they list it either with a broker or a private listing, and the boat tends to sit on the market for far too long, and the donor kind of gets frustrated, or maybe he was just getting low offers.
Right.
Anything could happen.
Right.
So during that time, the ongoing expenses and maintenance and fees are just continuing, and it's very frustrating for the owner.
Right.
So fortunately, owners are becoming savvy to the benefits of boat donation.
Okay.
So they're coming to people like, or outfits like Block Island Maritime Funding. They're donating the boat to charity.
Yes.
And we take in the boat right away, and all expenses cease, and all the responsibilities of boat ownership are finally over with.
Right. And they get a tax deduction.
And they get
for
a
the
tax
donation,
deduction from
right?
that.
Yeah.
Well, they get an appraisal, and
Yeah.
that appraisal is fully tax deductible.
Right. So so it's clear. So if someone has a boat they're thinking about donating, it's a way for them to move on from that particular boat,
Right.
do good things, and realize a significant benefit themselves.
Right. And then we list the boat on the market.
Right.
And we put it into a charity, into a charter program.
Right.
And it's just a great thing for buyers as well.
Yes. We're going to talk about the buyers in a second, but I want to show another boat in the portfolio here, because you've got a mixture of sail and power, new and old. Now this is looks like a 29-foot Blackfin, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's a Blackfin 29. She's a really great performance cruising boat,
Yeah.
sport fishing, really.
Yes.
You can see that she has a really broad bow.
Yes.
She has a very narrow fin V hull, and makes her rise onto a wave quickly.
Mm-hmm.
She has a very streamlined transom area, and she's just really elegant. She's kind of timeless in her
Pretty
looks.
boat, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty boat. This is an interior shot here.
It's a really wide V berth. It makes for a great family getaway boat for the weekends.
Yeah.
She has a small dinette on the port side and a galley to the starboard.
There's the galley there.
You
yeah.
can't see it in these shots, but she also has an enclosed head.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah,
to have, yeah.
makes a great.
All in a 29-footer.
All in a 29-footer.
Yeah, and then here's the shot. I
Right.
think this is our final shot here.
Yeah.
Wide cockpit, right?
Wide cockpit area, not just good for fishing, but also for all kinds of water sports, including maybe a dive boat. She has a transom door that opens up to a swim platform,
Yeah.
and she's just a great boat,
Right.
great all around.
Nice flexible
performance.
boat. So again, we talked about the donors a little bit. What is the primary group of benefits that are associated with being a purchaser of a boat like the Blackfin or the Baltic, one of the other ones we're going to show people today?
Right. Well, a big benefit to a potential buyer would be that we list our boats well under fair market value.
Right.
And that's a huge benefit. And we do that because we don't want to put the boat onto the market, or we don't want to hold on to the boat for too long.
Right.
Because expenses just build up.
Sure.
And then there's less money that goes out to the charities
Yes.
once we do sell the boat.
Yes, okay.
So because the boat was donated to
Yes.
us, we have to hold on to the title
Yeah.
for a 3-year period. Now that allows the buyer to spread out his payments in that charter program
Okay.
over that time. So it's
Okay.
very manageable to pay for a boat.
Right. So the purchaser, if I can just recap what you're saying, gets a boat at a significant reduction to what they would have the market value typically be at,
That's right.
and they can pay for it over time, it sounds like.
That's right.
How about if they start, I don't know, they go ahead into payments for a year or so, and they get transferred from, say, Boston to Texas, and there's no place to put the boat, so they got to, is that
Right, and that
doable,
doesn't
or
happen
how-
very often,
No,
but it
right.
has happened to us in a couple of times.
Yeah.
And, you know, if that happens, then there's no obligation.
Mm-hmm.
We can let them out of their charter agreement, we'll take the boat back, we'll put it back into our fleet, out for charter again, and they're happy, they can go on their merry way, and there's no issues with that at all.
All right, so very flexible arrangement. And in terms of numbers, this Blackfin that we're looking at, you're offering it for around 40-some-odd thousand, 44,000?
Right, we're offering it for $44,000, but fair market would have been $85,000.
All right, so roughly double.
Right, it's a great offering for
Yeah.
any buyer.
Now, do you have, just along those lines, do you have any flexibility if someone comes to you and they see a boat like the Blackfin? I really like this Blackfin. And they say, oh, I can't do 44, maybe I could do 42. Do you
Right.
have
within
any wiggle
reason,
room in
absolutely.
that sort of thing?
Yeah, within reason, we will take everything into consideration.
Yeah.
Especially if they can put more money up front.
Okay.
Like we usually
Okay.
typically ask for 1/3 deposit of
All
the
right.
asking price up front.
Yep.
But if they can put significantly more
Mm-hmm.
money up front that we can then put straight back into the charities,
Right.
then we'll lower our asking price.
Right. Wow, that's neat. So we're seeing a lot of benefits for the donors and a lot of benefits for the purchasers. That's a great arrangement. Well, let's look and see what other boats we have here. this is a Vindo, right?
Yes, it's a Swedish-built boat.
Yeah.
They're really neat. They're known as the Hinckleys of Sweden.
Nice. Nice reputation to have.
Exactly. So they're very well-built boats. They're solid fiberglass.
Yeah.
You can see that she's made of a mahogany cabin house.
Yes, I think
And
we
it-
got a closer shot of that too.
Right, and it goes all
Wow.
the way back to the coamings. She has a deep cockpit, teak decks. Again, she's solid fiberglass, a great performing boat. Several of these have crossed the ocean.
Really?
So they're very, very wonderful sailing boats. She has a full keel
Seaworthy, yeah.
and protected rudder. Yeah, she's just a great boat.
Beautiful boat. Now, you've talked about, a couple times here so far, about the charities. Can you share with us a little bit about some of the programs that the money gets donated to?
Sure, Paul. We support charities all over the United States, not
You
just
do?
on the East
Okay,
Coast.
I didn't realize that.
Right. So I'd like to talk about maybe one from the East Coast and then one from the West Coast.
Yeah, well, we might have time to go in a little deeper, but let's start there.
Well, we'll just take a couple of hits real quick.
Yeah.
The Oliver Hazard Perry, Rhode Island. It's a tall ship. It's the first one built in America in over 100 years.
Really?
And they take 20 student guests
Yeah.
as crew, and
Okay.
it's a sail training ship.
Okay.
And not only do they sail the ship, they also have other maritime curriculum that they engage themselves in while at sea.
So how do they figure out, I don't want to go too far down this tributary, but how do they figure out what kids, is there a certain age group or they come from a certain area? or
From
something?
all ages.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And this acquaints them with not only maritime, but is also some of the benefit with teaching certain life lessons or how to make decisions? Or
Yeah,
that
it's
sort
a
of thing?
team building experience.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. That's a cool thing. When did that boat get, that program?
It started a few years back. It started with a barge haul, and then they built it out into a tall ship. It's an extraordinary ship.
Wow,
It's
wow.
enormous. You
Yeah.
see it docked in Newport often.
I'll keep my eye out for it. So that's a pretty cool program. You said
Right.
there was one on the West Coast as well? that
Right,
you
let's
guys
talk
involved
about the
in?
Northwest Maritime Center.
Yeah.
That one's in Port Townsend, Washington, and it's located on the beautiful Puget Sound. It's a huge campus. And what they do is they design curriculum around their rich maritime culture in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
And so they have sailing programs, boat building workshops, all kinds of things that engage the community into their maritime heritage.
And let's get a little different flavor out there. Maritime life on the East Coast and maritime
Exactly.
life on the West Coast,
Right,
right?
right. And they also hold the largest wooden boat festival in the United States.
Oh, they do?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay. So we may come back to some other programs later on, but the process, so someone says, okay, I like some of the things I've heard here so far, whether I'm a donor or a purchaser. The process is pretty well outlined by the IRS, right? You don't really want to do this on a whim. You want to follow
No, you got to follow
rules,
the IRS
right?
guidelines. It is the IRS, and we have to follow strict guidelines.
Yeah.
So it all starts with an arm's length appraisal.
Okay.
So any boat that's valued at $5,000 or above has to have an appraisal.
Okay.
So what we do is we have to have an arm's length relationship with the marine surveyors.
Yes.
So the actual owners will hire a marine surveyor
Okay.
on their own regard.
Okay.
And then the marine surveyor will come in and do evaluation of the boat.
Stem to stern.
Stem to stern, but
Yeah.
this is not the same thing as a survey on
Okay,
a boat,
okay.
like a buyer would hire.
Yes, right.
This is to evaluate the boat overall,
Yes.
its condition. It'll take into account what kind of gear is coming with the boat, what kind of upgrades were done to the boat, and comps online that the surveyor can issue along with the survey.
They're trying to dial into the value of the boat,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yes, right.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so they got to have an arm's length. They pay for the surveyor, which is what,
Right.
15 to 25 bucks a foot type thing.
That's exactly right.
Right,
And then
right.
once that survey is complete, that along with the proper IRS documents are all filed, and then that boat is no longer that owner's responsibility. It's now all under Block Island Maritime funding.
Okay.
And we will take care of all of the maintenance, repairs, the yard fees, brokerage fees,
Insurance.
insurance.
Yeah.
Right.
All this
we
stuff.
have we insure it for hull coverage and P&I.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's really a very simple process for an owner to get out of a boat.
Right, but it's an important process, right?
It's very important,
You don't
yes.
want to try to circumvent that. You know, we're talking about the process here, and it's interesting to me the types of boats that you guys get in the program, and I'm sure other good programs get as well. And this one is just a very, very a jewel, really. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, this is a 1930 Elco 50. Can you give us a little background on this? How did this come to be part of the
Yeah,
fleet?
Paul, this is one of my favorite boats. I've done a lot of cruising on this boat up and down the East Coast.
Yeah.
She's a long top Elco, and she was built as a production boat
Okay.
in Bayonne, New Jersey, by the Electric Launch Company.
Yeah, very famous boat company. from
Exactly,
those
but
days.
these things are mistaken for Trumpies quite
Yes,
often.
yes.
But they're not. They're
Similar
production
lines,
boats.
Very similar lines, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Trumpies are all custom built, and these are production.
Yeah.
So she's been completely restored back
Really?
in 2013 by the
Okay.
previous owner. So she has all new planking, all new ribs, all new systems, engines. She was rebuilt
Really from the keel
from
up
the keel
to the deck.
deck.
Yes.
And then the deck and the cabin house and the long top are all original.
Wow.
So we're seeing in this shot here, this is the step-down galley from the main salon area, and it's a wraparound galley. It has everything that you'd want within a few steps.
Right.
And when you're out in some seas, this is a great place to cook because it's
Yes.
down low.
Yes,
And then
okay.
forward of that is crew quarters.
Okay,
So you have
all right.
upper and over bunks, storage, cabinets. It's really great.
Crew, everyone normally takes along on their voyage, yep.
Exactly. Now we're seeing the owner's stateroom. Now this is in
Yeah.
the aft of the yacht.
Yes.
And it's got a double bunk on either port and starboard.
Yeah.
Nice cabinetry. And then forward of this, you can't see it in the shot, but there's a wonderful large head area with a
Okay.
walk-in stall shower.
Nice. Very private, very
Yep,
spacious,
exactly.
very luxurious.
Exactly.
Yes, yes. Look at
And then
another
here's the
shot.
salon
This
area.
is the salon. Entertaining. This is where you'd entertain.
Exactly right. And the helm station's in this area as well.
Okay.
And these are the original parquet floors.
Really?
From the original
1930.
build. Right. Has wraparound windows, great view.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a really glamorous boat, and we get a lot of attention when we
Great
take
for
this boat
entertaining,
out.
huh?
Right.
Oh boy, look at that. And here,
And here's her helm station.
Yep.
Now, this is an
Yep.
interesting position. It's very far forward.
Yeah.
Now, it's a 50-foot boat, and she's 12'6" wide, right?
Yes.
So she's quite a long boat, but
Yes.
the helm station's positioned far forward, making it feel like a really small boat.
Okay.
Until you're looking aft, and then you can see what you're dragging behind you. But she has two Cummins diesel engines, 210 horsepower each, and a bow thruster.
Yeah.
So she's really maneuverable. She's a
Yeah.
real sweetheart to dock.
Wow, that's just a beautiful boat. I think we have one last picture. This is from the stern
Right, this
shot.
is her, yeah, you can see her stern area and
Yeah.
all of her teak's decks, and there's walkways going up and down. This is a great area for the guests to hang out
Yeah.
when we're out at anchor at a dock. You can see all the way around the boat. It's just wonderful.
Now, you said that this boat has had a lot of refurbishment. Does that mean it would be a particularly good value if this was the type of boat someone would be interested in?
Yeah, it's a really good value. We think the rehab on the boat was around $1.5 million.
Really? That much? A
Yeah.
million and a half,
And then we have it listed for $495.
right? So,
So
a third
it's-
of the recent refurbishment
Yeah,
costs.
it's a very, very good value for somebody
Someone
who
wants a
can
boat
afford
like this. This is the right boat
Right.
to get, yeah.
And she's basically new.
Yes, yes, in all the important ways, right? All the major areas that need to be refit typically have been done
Yeah,
on this boat.
it's absolutely new. And
Yeah.
all the systems are modern and updated. All the wiring, everything
Yeah.
is brand new.
Yeah, perfect.
Right.
All right. Well, let's get back into the process. We've talked about donors. We've talked about purchasers. We've talked about the appraisal. Let's talk a little bit about this, how someone puts themselves in a position to deduct the full market value. Now, that there's some different things that charities have to follow. There's some different buckets of activity in order to make the whole process qualify, right?
That's right, Paul. The charity has to be set up for something called intervening use.
Okay.
And that means basically they have to hold on to the boat for at least a 3-year period for the donor to get his full tax deduction,
Okay.
the value of the boat deducted
Right.
from his taxes.
Right.
So you could put the boat into intervening use either through a sail training program. They
Okay.
could use the boat as a teaching platform of some nature, maybe navigation, sail training, or they can do as we do at Block Island Maritime Funding. You could put the boat into a charter program.
Okay. All right. Okay. Are there So that's one kind of, if there's an ABC, that's like A of it.
Right.
Are there some other methods that charities can use if they do modifications?
Right. Another way of doing it would be to for the charity to put significant modifications onto the boat.
Right.
So that the boat has it increases the value.
Okay.
And if the charity can then sell that boat for the value that was originally placed on the boat, then that donor can get his full tax deduction.
Right. Okay.
And the last way of doing it, or maybe one of the last ways
Right.
of doing
Another way of doing it.
if
Yep.
a charity
Yep.
found a person in need, say a fisherman that they can give the boat to, then that also qualifies as a tax-deductible charitable donation.
Okay. So again, a lot of benefits to this process, but there are some caveats and there's some rules and guidelines to follow. So you want to do it with people that know what they're doing.
That's right.
You know, we got some more cool boats here. This is
Yeah,
48-foot custom catch.
that's right.
One of the things that's interesting to me about this boat is it's got the shoal draft and it's got a big centerboard, right?
It does. So she's great for the Bahamas, or
Yes,
for deep
yes,
ocean
yes,
work with the
yes.
centerboard down.
Right.
You can't see it in this shot, unfortunately, but she has a clipper bow,
Oh,
which
okay.
is very rare in
Yes,
a sailboat.
right, right.
And she has an oval stern.
Yes.
And on that oval stern, she has a carved golden painted eagle. And the boat, hence, is named Eagle.
Named the Eagle,
And you
yes.
can see she has teak decks, and everything is teak boxes around all the hatches.
Yes.
This is an interior shot.
Yeah.
It was custom built for a couple to live aboard in long term.
Okay. Long
So
distance
she's not.
cruising.
She doesn't have a lot of cabins. She has one owner's cabin,
Right.
one stateroom,
That's all they needed.
a dinette, and a full galley. There's workshops, a walk-in engine room. In the forward of the boat is a sail locker with all the extra sheets and extra equipment that you'd want to take on
Yeah.
a long voyage.
So it's all laid out very nicely.
Right.
Here's a picture from kind of an overview
Yeah,
of those
kinda-
teak decks you were talking
yeah,
about.
she's
and
been indoor
and
stored.
The
Right.
stern, the curved stern.
She's just magnificent. She's what you'd want to be on if you're going to be offshore.
Really?
She's really well built. She's
Yeah.
got that rounded stern so
Yeah.
that if you got a sea that hits you from behind,
Right.
it's going
Dissipates
to break
the
it.
force,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's going to
Yeah.
be beautiful.
Beautiful. Hey, you know, that's a great boat. How about deduction? So someone says this process sounds good to me. I've got a nice boat, an older boat. I want to donate. How much of the value of the appraised value can they deduct from their
Right. So,
gross income?
so either a single donor or a couple filing jointly on their taxes can deduct up to 50% of their gross adjusted income.
Wow.
As a charitable
So
deduction.
if I got $1 million gross adjusted income, I could take up to $500,000.
That's exactly right.
Wow, that's
Right.
significant.
It is. But you have to be in a pretty high tax bracket to do something like that.
You do. Let's talk about another boat here, because
yeah.
you get such a variety in a boat donation program. You got Sail and Power, new and old. This is one of the newer ones. This is a 35-foot Sea Raid 2015. Right?
That's exactly right. And she was donated to us in as-new condition.
Yeah.
I mean, she was perfect. There
Yes.
wasn't a flaw on her.
Yes.
And she came in with a valuation of $340,000. And then we listed it, well, that $340,000 is tax deductible too for the donor.
Right.
Which is huge.
Right, it is huge.
And then we listed it for $280,000.
Nice.
Which that's
This is
that's
a luxurious
significant-
boat, as you can see from
Oh,
our
yeah,
interior
it's
shot
all
here.
custom. This is a party boat.
Yeah, this is a serious party
She's tricked out with just about everything that you'd ever want to
Yeah,
have.
looks fully loaded.
Oh, she is.
Yeah.
And there's actually sleeping quarters down that little hatchway down there,
Oh, okay.
with a head compartment as well.
Oh, right, I see that. Yeah.
She has stereo systems and canopies that fully enclose the boat.
Oh, really?
And she
Yeah.
she gets up on plane very fast.
Jeez. All right. Well, that's a beauty. Now here's another sailboat. So this is the other side of it. But before we talk a little bit about this, the gains that people realize, whether it's 200,000 or 300,000, whatever, if they can't use it all up in 1 year, can they carry that forward, or does it evaporate on?
That's right. And I should have mentioned that. They don't have to deduct that full value in the first year.
Okay.
If they're not in that tax bracket that they can really utilize that tax deduction, they can bleed it out over a 5-year period.
I see. Okay, all right. Now let's talk a little bit about this boat. This is a 32-foot Chesapeake. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, she's a classic design.
Yes,
she's,
I can see that.
She's made or designed by the famous architect Philip Rhodes.
Yeah.
She's one of those classic boats. If you saw her at a distance, she might look like a wooden boat.
Yes, yes, yes.
She's a really great sailing boat. She's very simple. She has two-tone painted decks, and the former owner just took immaculate care of her.
Really?
And
We've got another shot of it here.
yeah, I've sailed this boat, and
You have?
I've had her out in 25 knots of breeze, and she holds up to anything.
Really?
She was just wonderful.
Yes.
She has tiller steering, a lot of teak appointments, a nice little simple cabin. She has a newer Yanmar diesel engine. She's fully keeled, and just a simple sloop rig.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
she does everything you want her to do.
Just a nice little boat. You know, we might have touched on this earlier, but I wanted to just revisit it in terms of the process. Someone works with an organization, they go through the process, and then once particularly the appraisal process, the survey and all that's done, that's when the transition actually, if someone wants to, that's when the transition happens from the donor to the organization, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So that's when everything kind of, all the, I don't know, expenses associated with the boat stop.
Right.
So that's an important point for a lot of people. And again, it's a very simple process. It's not something that's like reading the tax code.
That's right.
It's fairly straightforward. And organizations like yours are very familiar with doing this. So you're in a position to really guide people through it.
Right, we're designed to specifically take in boat donations.
Yes,
So it
right.
starts out really with a person goes online quickly and fills out a form.
Yep.
And then we evaluate the boat. We go to the boat physically. We check it out ourselves, make sure it's something
Yep.
acceptable to bring in.
Yep.
Once it's accepted to bring in, then we'll take it in as a charitable donation.
Talk a little bit about points. So someone's thinking, oh, this sounds pretty good. I think I'll investigate this. And what would be some of the key points that, say, a donor should keep in their mind? If I want to participate in this process, these are some of the things I should keep at the forefront.
Right. Well, if I was a donor, I would first do my homework on the charity that they're thinking of donating to. I would make sure that they're running a professional and legitimate outfit.
Yeah.
Make sure they're following all the IRS guidelines. It's very important to be in compliance with the IRS rules.
It sure is.
And the donor should also review these guidelines for themselves as well to get familiar with it.
Right.
And I would also advise them to go to their financial or their accountant and make sure a boat donation really fits their financial needs.
Yes, yes, yes. And how about from a purchaser's perspective? I guess they have some of the same things on their mind, but is there anything else they should bear in mind?
Yeah, again, it's important to make sure that the organization is professional, and also, those organizations will list their boats well under fair market value, and it might be very tempting to go after a boat just because of the price.
Yes.
But I think it's really important that they should also get a survey on that boat.
Oh, yes, it's critical.
To make sure that they're getting a good value, and also to check out online
Right.
against
Right.
what the value is.
Get some comps, yeah.
And make sure you're getting a good deal.
That's a good idea. Well, it's hard to believe, but we're out of time here for the show today.
Okay.
So we've got to wrap it up. But I think we've given people a good overview of how donation programs work and some of the variety of boats that are in there. Very quickly, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Well, I want to thank you for having me on the show. It's been real fun.
You're welcome.
I'd also want to say that everybody can see that this is a win-win for the donors, the buyers,
Yes.
and most importantly, the
charities.
charities that are finding funding for their programs.
Any way they can contact you guys with questions?
Absolutely. Anybody can contact us at any time through www.blockislandmaritimefunding.com. Any questions you might have, we'd be happy to field those questions.
Good, thank you. And thank you, Smart Boating viewers, for joining us today. If you have comments or questions, reach us at www.smartboatingus.com. Thank you.